night at the Sahara. And the man that is hosting that awards show had a pretty good career himself, not only as a fighter, but now as an analyst. The always opinionated and entertaining Chael Sonnen joining us right now. Chael, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Well, that was a beautiful introduction. By the way, you didn't have to get all dressed up for me today. It's just me. Come on, you
This is
didn't. Come on, you put on your nicest stocking cap. I got it. What do you think of these glasses? I put these on the other day. My son laughed and said those are funny, and they are not meant to be funny. Are these funny, or do I look all right?
I think you look just fine. I dress like a homeless person when I do radio. I'm known for that, Shale. That's just
I,
the person I am. So you're rightfully so. You should be making fun of me for the way I dress.
No, I'm not making fun of you. I'm actually into it. I'm actually into it. I'm not dressed up myself. I thought you were going to tease my glasses, so I was trying to get ahead of it.
I love
See,
your
that's what a
glasses,
good.
man.
That's what a bully does. Like the bully attacks first. But now that I see that I'm with a friendly and I don't have a threat here, I mean, I'll change my tone. How are
There
you?
is no threat, Shale. I love you, man. I love what you do. I have to ask you this: like when you were fighting, did you ever think that you would have the career you've had post your career as an analyst? Because you've become quite the popular figure over the years.
No, and that was very nice of you to say. No, I mean, I can remember being in grade school, and the first day of class, the teacher would have you write down what you wanted to do, and no, it was never. This wasn't a thing. It wasn't an opportunity, and
Right.
we had such great leadership in our sport that made it a thing, and where people can participate. It's very hard, as you know, to participate in this sport if you're not getting in there and getting punched and kicked. So no, I did not imagine it, and I will tell you, I do very much appreciate to be involved.
Sure. I mean, if someone went up to you when you were like a 16-year-old kid and said, you're going to have a great fighting career and you're going to be hosting the MMA awards in Las Vegas, what would you have said back then?
Oh my goodness! I would have really been surprised. I can remember those first days of school. I wrote the same thing down all the way through 12th grade. I said I'm going to be president of the United States. I never knew about this. I got the dream to be a competitor in '93. Went and got a VHS tape. I never skipped class in my whole life. All houses have rules, but that was a big one in mine. Do not skip class, and I never did. And I did
Hmm.
one day. I came home. I confessed it to my father instantly. But I told him I know what I want to do. I watched this VHS tape. There's this guy named Horace Gracie. I'm going to learn this is what I'm doing. I never got in trouble for it. It was one of those things. But to announce it later, to even know that we'd have a World MMA Awards or be on a show with somebody like you, no, I really didn't think the sport would grow this fast. Dana White said that it would. I didn't think he could do it this fast. That's the truth.
What was the reaction of your family when you said you wanted to be a professional fighter? I'm curious.
Well, they were into it. My dad was very into boxing, as was I. And I went the route of a wrestler, but my father did tell me from third grade on, he said, hey, nothing beats a boxer. Don't ever get into it with a boxer. And we didn't have the foggiest idea. I mean, my school didn't even treat me like the tough guy. We did not know until Dan Severn got in the ring in 1994. We did not know that wrestling was an art. Nobody did. The
Right.
wrestlers didn't know. We all backed down from the football players.
Yeah.
That was just a thing. We thought that's what we were told.
That's so cool. I'm wondering, because of who you are and what you've accomplished in your career, have you had moments in your life, I would imagine, where you were starstruck, where you met somebody, whether it be a former president, anybody, a celebrity that you met and you were actually starstruck and you became friends with them and you met them because of who you are?
Okay, well, I'm gonna give you fighters, but I was a fight fan. I do remember the first time I ever saw Hoist Gracie,
Hmm.
and there was a Dave Chappelle, and he used to have Charlie Murphy on the show, and Charlie would come and tell stories. And Charlie told some story about Rick James walking in a room, and there was like an aura around. So I'm copying that, but I swear to goodness, Hoist had it. I swear there was an aura, and you want to know what this? The second time I felt that, I was at Extreme Couture working out, and Vanderlei Silva walked in the room. And I swear it was the same thing as Hoyt. Man, there was like just this thing uh, around him. And then when I have met celebrities, man, they've nothing but disappoint me. Truly,
Really?
nothing. But you want to know who was a great one? You want to know who was a great guy to the point that I feel I owe it to him to say, Sylvester Stallone.
Oh,
Really great guy, and I could say the same thing about Schwarzenegger. But no, most of them disappoint me. You don't want to hang out with them. They say don't
can
ever
you?
meet your heroes; you'll be disappointed. I'll
All
tell
right,
you
Chael.
what, it's been
I,
true in my life.
I can't stop you there. You're such an opinionated guy. Can you give me one story of a celebrity that you met, just one, that just was such a jerk, was such an a-hole? Like, give me an example of somebody you met and you're like, wow, I don't want to talk to that person again.
Yeah, okay. I did a show called Celebrity Apprentice. Now, I know that's an arrogant title, and I will admit there was no celebrities on it. But There was a girl that was on like Little House on the Prairie, and I mean, they were all drunks. Every girl there was a drunk. The guys were a bunch. It was weird. Like when I was around them, Layla Ali was there. She was special, and there was a guy that won it named Matt Eisen. And I don't
Mm,
know that Matt was famous at the time. I think he is now. He does a great show called American Ninja Warrior.
mm.
I gotta tell you, man, they were weird. It was a weird group of people.
Fair enough.
But it truly was like it's a really disappointing town. I mean,
Yeah.
it is. I see them and it's so fake, and everybody's got a script, and it's weird, man. It's
I
hard
hear
to
you,
get a
dude.
straight
I
story.
hear you. I mean, it's special when I meet somebody that I looked up to growing up and they end up being a cool person. But yeah, I'm with you. I've met some people that are just complete jerks, and I never really wanted to talk to them again. Uh, I want to ask you about Conor McGregor. Speaking of celebrities, arguably
Sure.
probably the biggest, if not one of the biggest name in the history of the sport. I've seen you talk about this, how he's gained weight, and a lot of people are making speculation. That's what it is, right? That he's taken or has taken performance enhancing drugs. We know that you were very outspoken about this in your career. You were caught taking performance enhancing drugs. Do you think Conor McGregor has cheated?
No, and I really have to clarify. It's really tough. If you ever fail a test, it will instantly come out in headlines that you were taking steroids or something illegal, and it does get a little bit complicated. There is a banned list and there's a approved list. It's as simple as that. And the media has created that performance enhancing drugs are illegal, and that's not true. There's a number of performance enhancers that are allowed. And there's
Right.
a number of things that don't enhance you that are banned. So you really have to know that ban list. Now, when I say did Connor cheat, he removed himself from the pool. So he would not be subject to that. I don't believe that Carna's on anabolics or anything illegal, but I do think there's some good medicine for a guy that's trying to repair a leg that likely would be very sensitive on a test. I think that's fair. I think Connor did the right thing. I think it was above board. He took himself out. He said, man, I don't want to be subject to this right now. I'm going to listen to my doctors as opposed to being the selective pool. I think people that call it cheat, I don't think that's right. I think he followed the rules.
So let me ask you another question when it comes to performance enhancing drugs. Do you think that it should be legal in this sport or in any sport? I've heard people even talk about golf and performance enhancing drugs, hitting a golf ball further. We talk about it when it could be football or baseball. I mean, obviously Jose Canseco, who lives here in Las Vegas, I've had plenty of conversations with him about the book he wrote, which changed Major League Baseball forever. What do you make of performance enhancing drugs in general? And do you believe sports would be more entertaining and be better for the fans if athletes were just allowed to take whatever they wanted to take?
Yeah, and I've got to tell you this, and I'm being picky, but for the people that know, this will be very very relevant. It's not performance enhancing drugs that are the problem. That's a media creation. All drugs, if you want to get FDA approval, you must prove that you enhance somebody's performance. Imagine if I go into a doctor and I say I feel great, bring me down a notch. That would be malpractice. What I'm trying to share with you, it's anabolics and steroids, and they go in this order. They make you bigger, stronger, faster. And no, they should not be allowed. They make a meaningful difference. I will share with you a number of people that were in my spot and got caught. They go, well, it didn't change anything. I worked really hard. Yes, it did. It absolutely changed. It absolutely gave an advantage for sure. And I say that because no, you start getting guys in labs, you start doing what the Russians are doing, and you're cheating sport. You're never going to have there's levels that a human can't get to. That you will go to a subhuman level if you're on chemicals, and you just can't have it. You got to have clean sport.
Fair enough. I think a lot of people certainly agree with you on that one. Uh, Talk to me a little bit about Las Vegas. You're here a lot. This is kind of like the capital for MMA, right? I mean, I go to so many fights here, and obviously the fighters love coming here, and most of the fights are right here in Las Vegas. Do you want it to continue that way? And do you believe Las Vegas should be the mecca of professional fighting?
I believe that it is. I think that Vegas earned that as well. Just to remind you, in 2001, when they were attempting to get this approved, Vegas was the first to the table. That was followed by New Jersey, and those both really led. Then California and Texas stepped in, and we had some other commissions. President Mazzulli out of the Mohegan Sun, which is a tribal
Yep.
territory, but they've really stepped forward and they want to be the leader. I agree with you. I hear this argued all the time. I don't think it is an argument. Vegas is the fight capital of the world. That's where I always wanted to fight. I felt like it was fighting at home. If I had to go anywhere else, it wasn't. And yeah, man, Vegas still earns that right. And their commission has stepped forward, and they've been leaders. They deserve it.
If there was one thing top on your list, number one, that you would tell Dana White, here's something you need to change in this sport, what would that be?
Okay, so this could never actually happen, but this is my fantasy. I like a forfeiture clause. I came from amateur wrestling. If it was time to wrestle and a guy did not step on the mat and the other guy did, we raised his hand and we awarded those points and we moved on with the damn tournament. I mean, the Super Bowl is booked for next year, the year after that, the year after that. So is the Olympic Games and so is the NCAA. If one guy doesn't want to show up, F him. I don't understand why you get a feel good, man. Are you a tough guy or not? If this comes down to you're not even tough enough to leave the locker room, you
Right.
lose. And you can't
Yeah.
run a business that way, right? You got a whole bunch of people buying time. I get that will never happen. I want it. You don't show up on a date you're supposed to show up, you lost.
I love that. I absolutely love that idea. Again, if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Chael Sonnen. He is the host of the MMA Awards, which is going to be at the Sahara Thursday night right here in Las Vegas. What is more nerve-wracking for you? Minutes before in your career a fight or minutes before being backstage hosting the MMA Awards? What do you think is more nerve-wracking?
Oh, a fight, man! It was the worst. It would hurt. It would actually be challenging me to explain what the emotion is, right? Like a human being gets happy or mad or sad or scared. It's a combination of all of them, and everybody puts on their game face and denies it. And says I was confident. And they're all lying. All of it. It's a really weird feeling. It borders on. There's some excitement, but it's much more terrifying.
Was there a moment in your career as a fighter where you said to yourself, you know what, when I retire, I want to be a commentator. I want to be like this guy. I want to, was there a moment where you said that to yourself or did you know this all along?
No, I kind of stumbled upon it. I had a very big feud at one point with a guy named Anderson Silva.
Yep.
And we ran into each other in a hallway at the Mandalay Bay. And everybody had a phone. Everybody's pulling out a phone. And so I realized when he and I face off like this you got to be in character. This is real, and this is going to go out there. So I left it, and I was sweaty. I was just walking. I was in a sweaty, tense situation. I couldn't make it up to my room. I had to stop at this open air bar at the Mandalay Bay. I had to get a Coke. I needed a Coke with some grenadines, my drink of choice, and so I go and get one. And I'm standing there with a guy. There's not a lot of people there. This is like 2, 3 in the afternoon. I start making conversation with a guy. I kind of realized he's a fight fan. So I just told him the story. I just said, hey, by the way, I just ran into Anderson Silva and I just told him what happened. And the guy said, hey, man, can you tell that story on TV? And I said, yeah. And he took out his card and handed it to me as a vice president at ESPN. And that's
Oh
how I got
my,
hired.
and that's how you
One,
got
one,
hired. No, I never knew that.
1 week later, I was in Bristol, Connecticut. I was telling that
Yep.
story on a little .com. I think it was called MMA Live. And then I stayed with them. They ended up, there was a corporate raid and Fox bought all the people at ESPN. And I went with that
Yeah.
and went
That's
back. But yeah,
incredible.
if I had not been in that bar, if I hadn't had that interaction with Anderson, if I had not spoke to this stranger, I don't know that we'd be here today.
That's incredible. What do you make of what Joe Rogan has done with his career, right? Because obviously, in my opinion, if he's not a commentator for MMA, he probably not as nowhere near as popular as he is now. He has the biggest podcast right on the planet. And you know Joe Rogan really well. What do you make of what he's done in his career? Some people call him a controversial figure when he talks about COVID or politics or what have you. But this guy has the biggest podcast in the world. And I believe MMA helped give him that platform.
I was an early guest of his, and I went on his podcast. And I used to have a shtick back then, and I'm bearing all the fighters. This guy's a wimp, and whatever the shtick was. And Joe said to me, "Hey man, if I don't really like to have fighters on because I'm a commentator, I'll have you on." I was pushing a book or something. I invited myself, kind of, hey, can I come on this thing? But I'll share with you I I didn't know how to spell podcast. I thought it was 2 words. I thought it was pod and space cast, and he would take breaks. He never really brought you in. He never really took you out. If you wanted to go outside and smoke weed, he would just keep rolling the cameras. He'd go, I'm going to go smoke. He would just, the cameras would just sit there blank, and he would come back. But the bottom line is he was probably one of the first. And they say he's the biggest now. He was the first I ever heard of. I never even knew what a podcast was. So yeah, fair game to Rogan. And then, he kind of came off as like an intellectual guy, and he started to get, guess and parlay that right as social media. It was an interesting rise watching that happen.
All right, I'm going to ask you a two-part question here. A couple more quick questions for you. I appreciate your time, by the way. I want to ask you, who do you think is the most underrated fighter of all time? And who do you think is the most overrated fighter of all time?
Boy, it's an interesting question. There was a middleweight that fought for a period of time named Tim Kennedy. And Tim even fought back in the dark era, which just means there was no cameras. You had to like buy a ticket and be there. And he would do tournaments. He'd fight 2 and 3 guys in a night. And then he would disappear. he would disappear, and it turns out that he's an American hero and he's overseas, like saving the country. It's just a really good story. I felt like it never got told, and
Mhm.
I'm not sure that Tim's best years were in the octagon. I'm not sure that they weren't years that the military took and they had him somewhere else. But he was a very special talent that a lot of people don't know about. He went to the ground with Hodger Gracie and won. Really, really a special talent. Maybe didn't get his credit, and the most overrated. Golly, I gotta tell you, and she's a friend of mine. I'm not looking to be a jerk, but there was never a day of her life that Ronda Rousey was the best fighter in the world.
I tend to agree with you
They
on
just
that.
didn't know the division. They just didn't know the division back then. You had to start with somebody. And I mean, I'll just remind you, she was the champion of the UFC. She never stepped foot in the octagon. They made her champion at a press conference. I am not bagging on her. That's the answer, though.
Yeah. Oh, I understand. I liked her appearances in the show Entourage, so I did like some of her acting. But no, I'm with you on that. Hey, give me a preview of the award show Thursday night. This is your night for everyone in the business, right? Giving awards to the best in the business for all sorts of different categories, and we're so glad that they chose Las Vegas, of course, and the Sahara on Thursday night. Give me a little preview of the award show on Thursday.
Well, Fighters Only has made a massive commitment to this. I mean, this I don't even know what number this is. This is probably like number 14, and now they've worked their way up. They're on ESPN Plus, which is a big platform, and they're just sticking with it. And you know, it's our award show. Not for nothing. There's probably bigger ones. I think the Oscars were just on or something like that. But this is ours, and it's very unique to us. And somebody has to step forward, and we as a community do accept the results. Errol Hawani, by example, if you're journalist of the year, we will take that, and other journalists will honor that. So it's a very big honor. Fighters like to come out to, but ultimately we're going to have a Fighter of the Year, which to compare to the Country Music Awards is Entertainer of the Year. That's a big one. But we also have a Breakthrough Fighter of the Year, which I always find interesting. Last year was Terrence McKinney. Great story about him. He was 3-0 in the UFC. He knocked everybody out. Oh, by the way, 3 years earlier, he was in handcuffs, almost killed by police when they came. They almost shot him. They ended up not. He turned his life around, and you get some of those stories too, which is fun. They don't ever really get told except at the award show.
Mhm. What do you think is the biggest misconception about you, Chael, that people that don't know you personally make assumptions about you? What do you think is the biggest misconception about you?
Well, then I could be trusted. I really don't like that. People say nice things, or I got like these fancy glasses. I mean, I have to hear these. They tell me that I look like Denzel. And it's interesting. I don't know about that. Like, my favorite people were the ones I met right outside the principal's office. And if you have a quality in life that I'm looking for, it's that you're a little bit shady.
How old were you the first time you beat the crap out of somebody? I'm just curious.
I was in the second grade. And I didn't know what it was. I mean, we got it a dust up, and nobody saw it. And we came in. Both, but me, he and I were friends. Two friends. It's always how it goes. And we came inside, and my face was cold. Like, I kept feeling my face was cold. And the teacher goes, "What happened?" I was trying to lie. Nothing happened. My face was all clawed up. It was like the wind touching the blood. I mean, I was 7 years old. I still remember that sensation. I look at him. I guess we just scratched each other, but that would
Was
be the
that a
first time
moment?
I remember.
Was that a moment where you said, "Hey, I can be pretty good at this"?
No, I don't think that. I had tough cousins. I didn't grow up with any brothers. I had an older sister, but my
Yep.
cousins were all champions, and those were my heroes. Those were the guys I looked up to. I walk into high school my junior year, and Matt Lindland's standing there, the number one fighter in the world, who goes,
Right.
Olympic silver medalist, and I was
Yep.
just kind of surrounded with these guys, and I had aspirations. I wanted to be like that. I grew up on Sugar Ray Leonard was my favorite, right over to the Mike Tyson era,
True.
and man, I thought I was lucky. I loved it. I was just really lucky having good people around.
Yeah. Well, Chael, you're so good at what you do, and I'll see you there on Thursday for the awards. All right. Last question. Give a scale of 1 to 10. How good was this interview, and would it, in return, get maybe a retweet on Twitter? Is it good enough, or does it not reach that bar?
You absolutely killed it. It absolutely does. Oh, by the way, let me tell you something. You want to know how you get something in life? You don't go read a book of books and go to a bunch of seminars and go get certified smart. You want to know how you get something in life? You ask for it. 100% you got the retweet.
Oh, you're the best, my man. Chael, you're one of the best. I love listening to your commentary. I love your opinions and love your podcast as well. Look forward to seeing you Thursday night. Thank you for the retweet, my friend, in advance, and
One
appreciate
of
you
the
coming
best.
on.
That's an interesting statement. One of the best implies there could be somebody better, and there's
I,
not.
Not with MMA. You're right. But I will go radio Howard Stern. That's why I got into the radio business. Sorry.
You can't deny Howard. Respect. Hey, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for your time. That's Chael Sonnen, everybody. He is like he really is. When it comes to MMA, in my